browse. Treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 236 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Today's show is what you guys really want. It's all about Dynasty trades. I've been seeing so many trades lately. I posted something, 135 of you guys and almost 60,000 views. You guys just started pounding them in, answered them all. Always answer them in the Patreon. That's the best way to get, advice from Snoog and myself. We're always in there just trying to, move things forward. The best part was I had 5 DMs in the last 24 hours said, Dad, that's a trade I would never even think of. And that's what we're there to do. Like, not just give you trade ideas, but give you trade ideas that you didn't even fathom there was something that could work. And then it ends up banging through. Nobody better to talk Dynasty trades than my main man Snoog. How you doing today?
Doing good, Dad. I mean, I'm excited. I've been trying to make trades myself in Dynasty. It's that time of the year. One thing I'm going to say just to everybody before we jump into this, stay patient. Stay patient when you draft capital. You have like 3 months before the season starts. You don't need to buy veterans right now. If you can get them at a discount, I will. But you don't have to think you need to make trades right now. And like you're going to die if you don't make a trade. Because I've been getting tons of DMs saying like, I need to trade this guy right now, but I can't get this or that. And I just say, okay, then what do you like? Just stay patient. Stay patient. Hold your draft capital. You get 625 first, great. Wait till week 5 when that guy goes 0-5, and then he thinks it's going to be the 101. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, there's so many guys that are saying, I need to fill this running back spot. I need to fill this tight end spot. You don't need anything in May, right? You need it in September. So there's no reason that if it isn't your trade, you don't have to make it. I feel like this time of year, sometimes we get that like, I'm bored, so I'm going to make Dynasty trades. You know what I mean? And that is not something that we ever condone. That's not something that we try to even say like, you know what? That's not what we're doing here. My main man, Lobo, he's been all over Twitter. He's like, facts. He gets it. You know what I mean? And now's the time to go out there and make those trades. And this time of year, I'm offering trades that are slightly less than what I would in season. I want to buy those vets on the cheap. The biggest thing, Snoog, that I've been doing in the last 48 hours, as rookie drafts are over for a majority of us. Right now, I'm buying the 25 firsts as soon as I can because they're only going to go up. If I have them, I'm holding them. I'm not giving those up at all. And the other thing I'm trying to do right now that I'm blown away, out of the 135 trades, at least 15 of them were dealing what I call foundational wide receivers. I'm trying to go in and I'm trying to do those reduced volatility trades that we do where I get a foundational wide receiver. If I can get Garrett Wilson and Joe Mixon instead of Jahmyr Gibbs and James Conner, I'm going to do that because now I have a wide receiver that's going to last forever and a running back that's going to bang this year. And I'm trying to buy those foundational wide receivers. You're going to be blown away at how many trades you see and once we start doing this with Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, guys that are like, this is who you build around. Make sure if you deal, other podcasts call it a hammer wide receiver. We call it a foundational wide receiver. These are the guys you build around because every year, right, at 110 to 112, Snoog, people are like, I want Brian Thomas Jr., I want Ladd McConkey. If you have Garrett Wilson, you have the flexibility to go get James Brooks now. You have these, Jonathan Brooks, James Brooks, it's like 1980. Yeah. But you have that flexibility to go out there and get those running backs and get those guys you need. So, Snoog, I want to talk to it because the reason this came about is in Smash 13, I have 9 firsts. Everybody's trying to get them. I'm trying to get that Infinity Gauntlet. I want 12 again. But, I ended up making a trade, and I wanted to get your opinion here because the original trade offer was going to be, Dalton Kincaid. I was going to get Dalton Kincaid for Kyle Pitts in a second. What I ended up doing was I got Kincaid, traded Kincaid and Zay Flowers for Garrett Wilson in a mid-second. And for me, what I was looking at in this roster, right, is I was saying, I need this foundational wide receiver. My wide receiver 1 was Zay Flowers. If I have 9 firsts, and we know the 25 class is absolutely loaded with running backs, with Ollie Gordon, Quinshon Judkins, so many guys that are just going to come in and dominate. The wide receiver class has Burden. It has McMillan. It has some really nice wide receivers. But I want my running backs to come in and just so I can dominate in 2025.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to highlight the key strengths of classes, but don't forget about that every class is going to have a couple good wideouts. It's going to have a good QB or two, maybe. It's going to have a good tight end. Every class has assets all around, but you always got to look at the strength of a class, and that's how you should be preparing your dynasty teams for when you have that type of draft capital. Is with 2023, I was preparing for the quarterbacks and running backs. 2024, I was hammering for wideouts. You got to find the strengths of the class. 2025, you can already guarantee that I'm going to be owning a lot of Judkins, Gordon, Jonty, all those guys, because I just love that position. And when it's strengths like that, like I love to buy. I have so many Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson shares just from rookie drafts. Like I was hunting those guys down, tanking for Bijan, making sure I had a top 6 pick for Gibbs, like getting Kendre Miller in that early second round. Like I love to take advantage of the strengths of the class. And when you're building around running backs are the best values in rookie drafts because they have the highest success rate of hitting and being something. Like you could kind of predict with just draft capital alone. It's good to get all your cornerstone quarterbacks, established guys, get your CJ Stroud and Jalen Hurts, and then get your Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. And then it's like, okay, I just need to fill running backs. All right, now go buy Alvin Kamara and Joe Mixon. Use those guys in a 1 to 2 year window, and then draft Judkins with your first round pick. Draft Gordon with your first round pick. And that's how I like to run my leagues and kind of run my teams.
And that's why this time of year, that's perfectly put. Because what I'm trying to do in this particular situation, is Zay Flowers and Kincaid worth more than Garrett Wilson in a second? Arguably, yes, right? But with this situation, Garrett Wilson is now my alpha wide receiver 1. I am willing and I want to trade off of, and I like these wide receivers as my wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, depth guy, but I'm trying to trade up off of Zay Flowers, off of Jordan Addison, off of Brian Thomas, off of Ladd McConkey. I'm trying to use some of my other pieces, fill that in so my wide receivers are Jefferson and Lamb and Wilson and London, and get to that area. Then you add those running backs and then you're dominant, right? Like you start to move those tiers together because when you have all those firsts, when you insulate properly like we tell you to do, right? With 9 firsts, I'm going to run the draft. So I might as well start filling in the gaps. I have Kyler Murray. I got the wide receivers. I just want it where I draft 3 running backs that are going to dominate and use the rest of the capital to build in there. So be strategic with your trades. A lot of you guys are just saying, this is the value, so I'm taking it. That's not what Dynasty is. Dynasty trades are a lot to do with value and market value and flipping it around, but make it make sense for you. So like another trade in here sent in from Scotty K. I love this one. So he gives up Jordan Love, T. Higgins, and the 305, and he gets Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, and the 211, which ended up being Xavier Legette. This is one of those moves, Snoog, where also he gave up a 25-second. But this is one of those moves where I'm like, if I can get Jefferson, and now I still have McLaurin and Legette, who are nice bench pieces or guys to fill in, you go get that alpha, right? As much as I love Jordan Love and I love T. Higgins, you go out there and you get Jefferson, and you move yourself, especially if you have 3 elite quarterbacks. I can't state this enough. If you have 3 elite quarterbacks, that 3rd elite guy is not scoring you any points. You might as well tear off that guy. You might as well use that guy to get a Jefferson and use your 3rd quarterback as a guy that's just going to put up points and be a security blanket rather than, okay, I have CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, and Jordan Love. Jordan Love's just sitting there as value that you're not using. It's just sitting there. So this type of move, I love. Getting Justin Jefferson. What do you think here?
Yeah, I love it. I look at that, like when you have that type of quarterback too, like I look at go get a Stafford and a Garrett Wilson for that quarterback, and then get your elite wideout and still have QB3. So you're just getting an asset that you can use in your starting lineup. I love buying Justin Jefferson. It's one of those players that like I won't touch unless I can get a discount on him because he's just so expensive. You're essentially giving up 3 to 4 starting assets that could help you win a championship for Justin Jefferson. Typically, like you're looking at like 3 to 4 firsts is what people value him at. So that's like you could get 4 Devontae Adams or like a Mike Evans and Devontae Adams.
In this one though, if I could take Jordan Love and T. Higgins and get Jefferson, I would do that even up. And then he somehow got McLaurin thrown in, who you and I both think is a nice rock-solid wide receiver, too, for this year, and Xavier Legette, which is, cancels out the second. So essentially you're buying, it's a 2-for-1 there, and if I can upgrade to Justin Jefferson, I'm going to do that at 9 times out of 10. You know what I mean? I got to get myself into those kind of situations to make sure we move up. Another one sent in from Christian Lodondo, and I think you're going to like this one. So he had no QB3. He wants to know if he should trade Garrett Wilson for Dalton Kincaid, Dontavian Wicks, and Deshaun Watson. So this is the other side here. Like if you don't have a tight end 3, it's 0.5 tight end premium. If you don't have a QB 2, would you trade Garrett Wilson for Kincaid, Watson, and Wicks? See, this is like the other end of this. To me, it's not sexy because I almost want to go out and say Deshaun Watson in a lot of trades for me isn't worthwhile because I feel like you pay more than you would for a Matthew Stafford, for an Aaron Rodgers, for a Kirk Cousins who's going to put up those points. Watson's just a little bit more risky to me. So what do you think? Kincaid, Watson, and Wicks.
I think Watson's a great buy low. Like, I think he's cheaper than what he can be easily right now, just in the market landscape. I think he's a guy that can be a top 10 quarterback in any given year if he puts it all together, especially in the situation he's in. But it's just, I feel like you're getting, like, the only certified asset you're getting is Kincaid.
Yeah.
And then I love Wicks. He's a breakout guy for me. I think he has a chance to be a big riser in the landscape, but I just think you could turn Garrett Wilson into better assets that you like better, that aren't like, that are more like foundational pieces. Like you could go get like, even if you go get like a Goff instead, or a Dak, like a Dak plus or something like that. Or you could try to just get a Deshaun Watson trade done before you accept this trade and see if you could add a second on Watson to get Dak, and then you end up getting Dak, Kincaid, and Wicks for Garrett Wilson in a second. Or like a Tua or something. Those guys are all in that like teens range where Watson's kind of sitting too. So I'll try to get a turnaround move going with that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Is like I hate. This was my first share of Garrett Wilson just because his value last year we saw shoot up so high. Like it. And now Aaron Rodgers is back. He's at OTAs. You're going to see Garrett Wilson's value shoot up again. And I think this is the year where we finally see him break into that. I could see, I mean, he has wide receiver 1 overall potential. With a Devontae Adams type career arc with Aaron Rodgers. I think he falls in that top 12 for sure this season. But he has wide receiver 1 potential. And this is someone where you could see him really shoot up the boards. Next one sent in from Crack Bass. And I've been saying, and everybody was like, Dad, what are you doing here? You've been saying to sell Jackson Smith and Jigba. But he got Jackson Smith and Jigba for Jake Ferguson in the 112. That, to me, is taking a guy that, a lot of times you could take that rookie pick. You have 112. 112's what? Maybe Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Bo Nix. Not sexy the whole way around there. And then you take a guy like Jake Ferguson, who's arguably, in most teams, should be your tight end 2. And I think he has some upside. But you package these two together to get Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then he got the 302 and the 25-4 thrown in. I'm smashing JSN all day, and everybody's like, but Dad, you've been saying sell Jackson Smith and Jigba. In Dynasty, Snoog, every player is both a buy and a sell. It's price dependent. If I can get Jackson Smith and Jigba for the 112 and Jake Ferguson, I'm going to smash that. If I have to pay the 107 for Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm not touching it anyway.
Exactly, yeah. That's what people don't understand is it's all cost of acquisition for every player. Like every player has a buy and sell point. If you can get players, like even if I can get players I don't like at a cost that I like, I will buy them like all day. So that's what it comes down to. Is it's always good to explore your league's trade market because you'd be shocked at how people are just like, I don't want them anymore. Take them. I'll take a pick. Like, people love rookie picks. Rookie picks are gold.
Kicking the tires is so important, right? Like, you don't know what somebody wants until you start talking to them. Like, the next trade, this is a guy that you and I both love, sent in from the Game Overture. Brandon Ayuk, Marshawn Lloyd in a first, or A.J. Brown in a third. I'm sorry. A.J. Brown is too cheap. Like, you and I have seen it everywhere. But if you can give up Ayuk and Marshawn Lloyd, which everyone's really getting on the Marshawn Lloyd bandwagon, but Josh Jacobs is still the running back to own there. Even if Marshawn Lloyd would hit, this is still A.J. Brown for me. Like Brandon Ayuk and A.J. Brown, as much as I love Brandon Ayuk, they're not on the same level. A.J. Brown is closer to that top 5 level than he is that 8 to 12 range where Brandon Ayuk is going to sit. And if I can go ahead and add a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, who probably in your rookie draft went, 2.8 to 212. Yeah. Add that to Brandon Ayuk during the draft and smash A.J. Brown every time. But you don't know. It's like you don't make any of the shots you don't attempt, right? You miss 100% of those ones you don't take. A lot of managers, and I don't understand it, I've answered 15 to 20 of these A.J. Brown type deals this week where people say, well, Jalen Hurts is his quarterback, so I don't want him. What? Like what? We're not
Put
saying
up 1,400 yards with him.
his quarterback isn't Zach Wilson. Jalen Hurts has supported AJ Brown to be a top 10 wide receiver back-to-back years.
He's put up back-to-back 1,450 plus yard
so I mean,
seasons.
AJ Brown, there's a lot of, he's still 26. He's only going to turn 27. Next month.
He has wide receiver 1 overall upside.
Why
At
is
any given moment, he could be the one.
Why is he in that same tier as those guys? Like you could add a second to Tyreek Hill and get AJ Brown in a lot of leagues right now because people feel like they're not going to get those points. AJ Brown very easily could outscore.
You're making me yawn right now.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to wake you up, man. I'm trying to get you to say, "Yo, AJ Brown is too dang cheap."
He absolutely is, and it's crazy that you could do like little things like tear off from like a top 12 wideout to get a top 5 to 6 wideout with a third round rookie running back pick. Like I love Marshawn Lloyd as a talent. I think he was my RB4 pre-draft.
Yeah.
He was arguably going to be bumped into that next tier for me. Like I thought he was very talented, can make everybody miss.
But even if this is Trey Benson,
he's this year Tank Bigby.
Even if this is Trey Benson, I'm still taking AJ Brown. Unless it's Jonathan Brooks, it doesn't matter what running back this is. I'm taking AJ Brown here, and that's that foundational wide receiver. Ayuk is always a safe wide receiver 2 on my dynasty teams, but I hate it if he's my wide receiver 1. It just doesn't feel good. AJ Brown does. Another one sent in from @ShaneParlayFF. This is one where, in the rookie draft, he traded Deshaun Watson, T. Higgins in the 103 and the 209 and 306, they kind of like throw out. But for CeeDee Lamb in the 106. So basically, Watson, Higgins in the 103, which is going to be neighbors. For CeeDee Lamb in the 106, this is one where if you can get CeeDee Lamb, and I've had this happen multiple times this week, people go, well, the Dak situation is uncertain. The Cowboys are going to re-up Dak Prescott. Like, honestly, they're not going to just let him walk. CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 dynasty wide receiver. T. Higgins will never enter that realm. Malik Neighbors might at the 103, but in this particular trade, you're getting back the 106, which could be Rome Odunze. That almost could cancel out. Like, so you're almost getting this where you're like, okay, Deshaun Watson and T. Higgins for CeeDee Lamb and a 103, 106 swap. Give me CeeDee Lamb all day long because of the flexibility of what I'm able to do with the rest of my roster.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it comes down to. I love that type of move because it's getting that elite asset and tearing off guys that you hope can get to that. T. Higgins hasn't lived up to the hype that we all wished. I mean, super talented player, can't stay on the field. When he's healthy, he's great. Inconsistent there with Burrow and Chase, though. I just think, I don't know if Cincy's going to unlock his true upside and his true potential. So hopefully he can get a move on to somewhere else, start fresh.
But
kind of like Diggs in Minnesota.
We're using him to tier up now. Let's be honest. Where T. Higgins is, no one's out there actively buying him. Unless you can. I'm using him to tier up. If I can add to get to AJ Brown, if I can add to get to, Malik Neighbors, if I can add to get to one of these guys, I'm going to do it. But I'm not actively going out and buying T. Higgins. And I love that you said, we're talking about tearing down. And this guy sent it. I got to get the name right. At what even is this? This is a cool trade. This is after my own heart. Where he had the 102 and he's rebuilding, right? He traded the 102 for the 104 and a 25 first. Good start, right? I love cascading trades where you take one trade, turn it into another one. Then he moves from the 104 to the 106 plus Jackson Smith and Jigba and a 25 third. So he goes from 102 to 106 plus JSN plus a 25 first plus a 25 third. That is insulation. As much as Marvin gets me excited, if you tell me I can get Rome Odunze, Jackson Smith and Jigba, a 25 first.
Did he take Rome?
We haven't gotten there yet. He already has 103, 105, and 107. So he's going to get Neighbors at 3. He controls the clock at 105, 106, 107. I think this is a masterpiece on a rebuild because I love Marvin, but he's already going to get Malik at 5, 6, 7. He controls the board where he can get Bowers, Odunze, and whatever quarterback he wants. And I think you're in a spot where you're going to absolutely smash there. And I love Marvin, but this is a really nice trade.
I think with that 5 spot, that 105, I think I'm going to try to move to 108.
Yeah.
From the 5. You guarantee yourself Drake May or Jaden Daniels at 6. You guarantee yourself Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers at 7-8.
Yeah, and he already has Gibbs, Puka, Laporta, 325 first, 226 first, and everybody keeps saying, "Oh, Dad, you keep saying to insulate these guys down, but sometimes you've got to get those elite assets." And you're right. But when you're rebuilding, you're trying to have as many liquid assets as possible. You're trying to get as many shots in the chamber where you're going to have, in this particular core, he's going to have Gibbs, Puka, Laporta, Bowers, Odunze, JSN. Now all of a sudden, it's filling out, and he's going to have all those firsts to draft for next year, which is like, we keep saying, it's an elite level to go out there and get those running backs. I'm all for it, and I want to keep moving in that direction. Another trade I wanted to talk to you about is the opposite direction. So I want to get your opinion real quick, Snoog. I'm trying to wake you up here, brother. I'm trying to wake you up. On Chris Olave. So a lot of people right now are buying Chris Olave. I'm in the camp of selling Chris Olave right now. Like, I am trying to use Chris Olave to tier up, or I'm trying to get multiple assets here. So this particular trade, guy traded away Chris Olave. He already has Puka, Nico, Jefferson, Watson, Downs, Odunze, Brian Thomas, and Ladd. Mm-hmm. He gets DeAndre Swift in the 25 first, which he needed the running back depth. And, now he gets who you have as a top 15 running back and a 25 first for next year. Is this enough for Chris Olave?
I remember answering this. I think this was a Patreon question. I remember answering this and talking to this guy a little bit. I think the 25 first is enough to take the risk on Swift hitting or just being what he's been. Because if he hits and he explodes, like, he's 25 years old, he's going to be a top 5 to 8 dynasty running back again. Like, if he has like 1,200 yards, it finishes like top 6 to 10. So that's the good thing, and it's very likely in that offense. Chris Olave is a guy that
he's like Ayuk, right? You love him as your wide receiver 2. I will not play with him as my wide receiver 1.
Yeah,
the shares that I have, he's actually my wide receiver 3 or 4.
Yeah. Like, right here, I'm looking at a roster I have. It's AJ Brown, Chris Olave, DJ Moore is my wide receiver core, just my top 3 guys. He's a guy that has a really high floor. I don't think he ever gets to like that elite crazy ceiling, like top 3 to 5, unless he has the right quarterback for it. Because he's not a guy that's going to generate a ton of yak. Like, he's a guy, he's a Diggs. Like, he's a Stephon Diggs.
I think his ceiling is wide receiver 7 or 8 for one season. Yeah. And I think he's ultimately wide receiver 10 to 15 every season.
Yeah, he's like one of my favorite guys in the league just in general. Yeah. Him and Garrett Wilson were my guys for a while. I think he's that guy that you use to get AJ Brown or Garrett Wilson, or you use him to get Waddle plus, Devontae Smith plus, or Ayuk plus. So he's just in that weird tier.
To me, this is what's so important, right? Is being able, and this is something that I've been able to do in Dynasty, phenomenal over the years, and I know you do as well, is looking at the roster and saying, you know what, this is one injury away from being the 101. So I say, if this is an early first, it's a smash. If it's a mid first, it's a fair, and if it's a late first, you lose. Yep. Those kind of situations, I always say, if it looks mid and truly mid, I'm okay with this, right? Like, you want to take this trade where if it's mid, it's a tie, but you have the upside of that becoming, an elite level. Because if this becomes Ollie Gordon, you killed him. Gordon's going to be worth more than Olave. Or, if it gets to be, Burden, okay, then you dominated this trade. If it gets to be that this goes 8, 9, 10, 11, in that range, now all of a sudden you're in that area. And I want to talk about that a little bit. For me, if I know it's mid, right, and you can look at things that keep trade cutting, you can look at things like we always talk about is, what does the bench look like? What is the future capital? Because a lot of times you look at it and you're like, oh, his starting lineup sucks, but he's got 5 firsts, so you got to look at that. But if that trade truly looks mid, I take that because it's fair right now. Olave's value is not going to skyrocket. I think it's pretty safe. But if this first becomes early, you crushed it.
Yeah, that's kind of my same thought process there. If you didn't trade Olave for this deal, I would be fine with it.
Yeah,
but
it's not a necessary deal.
Yeah, if you do it, I'm not going to slap you on the back of the head. Like, I'm going to be like, okay, like we can make that work.
Look at the wide receivers he has. He has 3 alpha wide receivers. Now he gets to that spot, and for you guys that are new to the pod, he has an insulated trade where Swift's going to start for him, and now you take that 25 first and you buy another running back if you need him later. Another trade sent in from Mark Fisher. Like this one a lot. He got Drake London for Christian Watson and Devon Achane. I love this because Watson's someone that you and I are both trying to tear up of. Achane value has dipped, but I still think if you can take this kind of deal and I think you and I both have Drake London as our wide receiver 10. He's a foundational wide receiver at this point. I will take this trade 10 times out of 10. It's a smash accept for me.
I'm like literally tempted to put Drake London even higher. I have been thinking about it the past few days. I truly think if Kirk Cousins plays like 15 to 16, 17 games, there's a chance Drake London has a top 5 season. Like there truly is. And
so if you move him up, are you moving him above? Say like this is where the top 9 are so good. I mean, Jefferson, Lamb, Chase, Amon-Ra, Marvin, Puka, Garrett, Malik, A.J. Brown. I just can't see a scenario real life where he passes maybe Malik if Malik struggles year 1. Not Wilson, not Brown, not Puka. I could see him get to that.
I could see him passing Puka.
I know you're down on Puka, but
I could see him passing Puka, and I could see him passing Neighbors, especially if he gives us 1,200 to 1,400 yards this year and gets that breakout. The market's gonna go crazy for him because he's younger than Puka and but he's like the same age as Neighbors. Isn't Drake London like 21 years old still, or like 22? Like he is. Just has.
I think he's 22, turning 23.
His profile screams foundational. You can't forget the draft capital wizards that hold on to him being 8th overall. Like there's so much to it with Drake London that if he finally puts it all together, he's so loved by the fantasy community that he's gonna just be valued so highly. Like I don't know. I think for me, he could be as high as like my wide receiver 7 or 8 in Dynasty. I think.
Mm-hmm. Next one, this is interesting because it's similar value area, but a totally different type of trade. This one is sent in from @mcron91. He said he's in an Empire League. So if the winner last season wins again, we reset. So he's trying to make this all-in push. Just so you know, it's a 12-team, but it's only start 8. The rest of his roster he's got Hall and Gibbs at running back, Nico, Trey McBride, Isaiah Pacheco. The trade that he made, and I want to get your opinion on this because when league size matters, and when you're talking a start 8, he traded 225 firsts, the 110 and 111, for Tyreek, Devonta, and Derrick Henry.
Ooh.
So it's 4 firsts.
Start 8?
It's start 8, right? So that's a big difference, where I'm assuming that these 25 firsts are late. A late 25 first for Derrick Henry, the 110 plus a late 25 first for Devonta Smith, and you're basically buying, or for Tyreek Hill, you're buying Devonta Smith for the 111 is kind of how I looked at it. Like I'm willing to push the chips in to have a roster that in an Empire. And if you've never played in an Empire, you win 2 years in a row. So what Empire Leagues are, and they're really cool if you haven't done them, but you take half the pot every year, goes to the winner. The other half goes into, a future pot. And once somebody wins the league 2 years in a row, they get the whole pot. And I've seen it. I've won it where it's been year 5 and it's good money. I've heard of people having to go 20 years deep, and then it gets to a spot where it's like, that is a lot of cash. So if you have an opportunity to go out there and reset the league and go out there and win it, I think Tyreek Hill, Devonta Smith, and Derrick Henry do it for what would be Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., and 2 late firsts. A lot of uncertainty in an 8-team league. Or I'm sorry, start 8.
Yeah, I feel like you could get a little more added into like the Derrick Henry side, but I think I look at it like Devontae Smith, top 15. You're getting 2 top 15 Dynasty wide receivers that both will produce this year. They'll give you the production. Smith is like 25 years old, just got a massive contract. You get one of the best wide receivers in football, and then you get a running back that could give you 2 elite years in Baltimore, just scoring touchdowns. So I think if my roster, I think it depends on what my roster looks like. If my roster is like, these are the pieces that are going to help me win, I will do it.
They're all starting for him now. They all go into so now he upgrades from Pacheco to Derrick Henry. He upgrades both the wide receivers now. His 3 wide receivers is set. Breece Hall, Gibbs. Looks like he's ready to smash now. And that's the difference.
That's a good roster. I'd do that. But if I'm like rebuilding, and that's the first move I make, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you could get stuck with those 3 guys and then you
And it
just
hit
wasted 4 firsts, and then your team sucks, and then it's like
100%.
okay.
Next one sent in from Wesley Popsicle. He said he's starting Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Amon Ra. He's making a trade now because he wants to get the stack with Anthony Richardson. He traded Drake London for Michael Pittman Jr. and a 27 first. That's a different presidential candidate, so that's like way down the road. I told him if it was a 25, I'm smashing. If it's a 26, I'm right there. 27 is kind of interesting for me.
Wait, so
like
it's a 27 first? Someone's already traded him?
27 first and Pittman is what he got for Drake London. So, I mean, he wants to stack it up with Anthony Richardson. He already has Garrett, Marvin, and Amon Ra. I was like, you know what? I'm low-key buying Pittman everywhere, but I also love Drake London here. So, I mean, like, is this worth it?
I've never been a Pittman guy, like, ever. I just don't see it with him.
And I've never been a trade a 3-year out first.
Yeah.
Because that could be the 101 if you're in a bad spot. So that's a tricky one. I think if it's a 25 first, I would clearly smash it. If it's a 26, we're getting closer. A 27 is just too far out there.
I think Pittman's gonna have a big regress year, and I think he's gonna come back down to earth, especially with like A.D. Mitchell there, Anthony Richardson hopefully playing a full 17 games. Like,
yeah,
I don't know where like.
No, I'm with you.
Downs going into year 2. Like, there's just so much around him, and he's not like that good of a wide receiver where he's cementing himself as a guy that's like an A.J. Brown. Like, he's
people keep talking about the stack, but I mean, for me, I don't think Anthony Richardson's a quarterback I'm trying to stack up on. He's going to run. He's going to do things with that way. Like, if I could stack up and get a quarterback that's elite, if I can get a guy that
you stack Burrow with Chase, or
correct,
you stack Kyler with Marr.
People get so excited about the Chase, or the stack. Somebody the other day told me that they were trying to stack up, Caleb Williams with Cole Kmet, and I'm like, that's not a stack. That's just you're adding. It's the top 12 wide receivers.
I only care about a stack if it's 6-point passing to start. Because that's like 12 points minimum on a touchdown from your quarterback to your wideout. And I only care if it's like an elite end stack. Like if you get like a Stroud stack with like one of his wideouts, or a Burrow or a Hurts, like those are the stacks you care about. I don't care about getting like a friggin' Will Levis, Calvin Ridley stack. Like, don't waste your time going out of your way to do that unless it just comes to you. Yeah. But don't like give up extra assets just to get that.
I'm with you. So many people fall in love with the stack. This one sent in from O'Trey Hooligans. This is the stack made in heaven that you want to get. He gives up Christian Kirk, George Pickens, who I know you love. I do as well. And the 309, but he got A.J. Brown. Now he stacks that up. A.J. Brown is a steal here.
That woke me up.
We love George Pickens. We do. Like he has top 12 upside. Like he could be in that top 12 next season, but A.J. Brown will be in that top 12. And if you take a guy like Christian Kirk to add to it in a 12-team superflex, someone's just probably trying to add depth. Go ahead and get that alpha.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it comes down to. Like Christian Kirk, I just don't care about. I don't care to own him. Nothing. Like he's just another guy for me. George Pickens, though, like that's a player that I'd be targeting. But if I could get A.J. Brown, man,
just do it.
It's just not even close.
Sometimes people want to buy the mystery box, but you already have it. You already had A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Don't try to pick the next A.J. Brown and add Christian Kirk. Now, Snoog, if that's a 25 first, okay, now we're talking, right? If you're in a team where you're like, I want to trade A.J. Brown for George Pickens and a mid-25 first, that's how you build insulation, not Christian Kirk, not random seconds. First-round picks. Now, all of a sudden, George Pickens becomes a top 12 wide receiver. A.J. Brown's wide receiver 7. Pickens is wide receiver 12. Now that first, you're like, okay, I won or at least broke even. Christian Kirk's never going to do that for you. That's a desperation move on the other side.
Every year we talk about like those wideouts that break out from like that round 4, like 5 to 7 range. You had Ayuk, you had DJ Moore do it when he got his quarterback. You had Smith do it. You had Olave. All those guys
Pickens
do it.
This year, right?
It's Pickens this year, and he could truly be that guy now that he finally just has 2 established veteran quarterbacks that are a million times better than Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett. He could literally go for like 1,300, 1,400. Brandon Ayuk had 1,300 yards on 100 targets. Like George Pickens has that type of like he can do that on a minimum amount of targets. Like I think he gets like 120 to 130 targets, and he could go for like 1,200 to 1,400 yards if he hits his ceiling. So
And these are the guys he's next to on Keep Trade Cut, just so you know. And I want to say, if you want any of these guys instead of George Pickens, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, and Jordan Addison. Do you want any of them over George Pickens?
Ooh, I think I'd literally take Pickens over every single one of them.
Right? But he's in that area. Maybe Dell.
I feel like he's like a refreshed version. I think I would put Pickens, Dell, and T. Higgins in like a tier.
Yeah, but I think Pickens
poison.
could get the most targets here and have the most upside. So we are both saying go out there and buy George Pickens on the cheap. That's definitely something that Snoog and I are going for. Another trade here sent in from Aaron Bailey, and this one's interesting because he traded Chris Olave and Bijan for Justin Jefferson.
Ooh,
so
that's a good one.
Is that enough there where we're trying to, we want to build the longevity. We want to build that area. You get Bijan Robinson, who's a top 5 running back. Chris Olave, who, we just talked about at length as being a back-end wide receiver 1 for the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty.
I would take Chris Olave and Bijan 10 times out of 10 in that trade.
Yeah. I told him if I get Joe Mixon back, if I get Alvin Kamara back, okay, I'm okay with this now because now Jefferson's going to be there. But
insulation.
Exactly. But on this one, I'm not digging it. That's just
you get a foundational RB1 overall in Dynasty, and you get a top 10 to 12 Dynasty wideout for the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. It's like Bijan could have a type of year where he gets close to a Jefferson in value, just like we saw with JT. And if that happens,
he could be a back end super flex round 1 pick.
Yeah, like he could be that 107 one. He already was basically.
Yeah.
So
here's an interesting trade sent in from Mac Evans, and I like this because a lot of you are asking me these questions like, Dad, I don't know who to cut off my team. I don't know what to do in this. He traded, and I love this because this is smart. This is unloading your bench to upgrade, and it doesn't seem sexy, but at the end of the day, it is. He gives Zay Jones, Elijah Moore, Michael Mayer, Jalen Hyatt, Kareem Hunt, and the 206. So someone probably wanted to get in on the 206. The rest of those guys, to me, aside from Mayer, are what I call roster cloggers. Elijah Moore, Jalen Hyatt, they're not going to do anything for you. I'm trying to move off them. He gets Terry McLaurin, Rondale Moore, Jake Ferguson in the 310. So he cuts 5 guys, gets 3 more. So he cuts 2 roster spaces. He gets Terry McLaurin, who's a wide receiver 2. He gets Jake Ferguson. And now you're in a spot where you just cleared roster space and you got better. You know what I mean? And a lot of times people are like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Like I want to have these players, but I can't cut these guys. You make moves like this. You add the 2-for-1s. You trade in this situation, a 5-for-3. And I think that puts you in a position where you're ready to go, and you're into that spot. That one doesn't take a lot to talk about. I just wanted to kind of key in on that one. At Tron4OU2, Jahmyr Gibbs in the 202 or Stephon Diggs in the 104 in Superflex. 10 team.
Ooh. 10 team. Give me Gibbs.
I think Gibbs is worth the 103, 104, and I think Diggs is worth the 202 in a 12 team. I think the 202 in a 10 team is a little bit better on that side. He ended up getting Gibbs in the 202, and I'm for that. Because at the 202, you're getting Jonathan Brooks. That's technically the 112. You know what I mean? So I'm with you. Gibbs is worth more than the 104.
If I don't get Caleb Marv or Neighbors, give me Gibbs.
Love
all
it.
Day.
Alden Beats traded the 109, 209, 509 for Tank Dell in the 203. I said smash accept, baby. I mean, you're like 1-9 is Tank Dell. Then you get 2-3 added in. No debate there at all.
Yep.
That's one of those ones where you just kind of disguise a bunch of extra trades. Guy Brian Dottie sent in. He got the 102 Superflex for the 104 and Gus Edwards. Guys, there is a first-round gap between Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison, period. If you can get it for anything less, go do it. Like, that's not even
Edwards.
anything to debate. Now, this is a fun one to break down. 1 quarterback league, Rashad White, Jamar Chase, and the 102 and 202. Or McCaffrey, Pitts, Addison, Amon-Ra, and Higgins.
So it's Chase, Neighbors,
and White.
And Rashad White. And then
for Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Pitts, no tight end premium, Amon-Ra, Jordan Addison, and T. Higgins. The 202, he said, ended up being Ricky Purcell, and the 102 ended up being...
I would take the CMC side. Because I'm looking at it like Amon-Ra, gets like not close to
The
Jamar
one,
Chase, but like Amon-Ra and like what was it? You get Addison, Higgins, CMC too.
yeah.
So it's like Amon-Ra and CMC clears Rashad White and Jamar Chase.
hmm
And then it leaves you with Malik Neighbors versus T. Higgins and Jordan Addison.
Malik Neighbors and Ricky Purcell.
For Jordan Addison and T. Higgins.
I think it's kind of fair. You know,
Yeah,
like I
damn,
think
it is closer than I
it's
thought.
closer than I thought. Like I said, if you're rebuilding, I'm tearing off to CMC, but I don't necessarily want to give up Amon Ra in that situation. You're like if I have CMC and I'm rebuilding, I want to get Jamar Chase all day.
Yeah.
I would rather take that and go. I'll give you CMC and T Higgins for Jamar Chase, right? Because then you know maybe even throw in somebody a little bit smaller, but all those extra pieces make it a little bit trickier in my opinion. And that one was from Hoagie Picks. Want to look at a couple more here. Another one where I was like, we have a contender. The 109 in Deontay Johnson or Jackson Smith and Jigba in the 310. I was like, if you're contending,
109.
give me 109 and Deontay Johnson all day. I mean, that one's a smash.
I think I'd take that regardless.
At the
That's
big
just
perg.
value.
Oh, for sure. I want to quick hitter some of these. At the big perg, Jordan Love and Christian Watson or CeeDee Lamb. I said
Lamb.
smash CeeDee Lamb. So bad. Like that's a, you know, if that's Christian Watson, maybe if it's Jaden Reed and Jordan Love, it's closer, but it's still not. I love
Christian
it.
Watson's like wide receiver 4 on the Packers.
The big perg, he tagged his league mate who traded it to him at Sharia Bob. He put suck it Sharia. So I mean I love that kind of stuff. A little bit of trash talk. Amon Ra in the 107 or CJ Stroud sent in from the Sandman
Stroud.
1030. That's
Stroud.
what I said too. Nice. I love it. I love when you and I are on the same page. I want to talk about a few more here. Let's look. Bijan or Zamir White and Garrett Wilson.
Garrett
12
Wilson.
team. That's what I said too. And other people were chiming in and be like, Dad, that's crazy. But I said, no, it's not, because you got Garrett Wilson, who I think at the end of the day will be worth the same as Bijan Robinson when it's all said and done. And Zamir White gives you the production. So you have the insulation of the wide receiver. You get the production of the running
take
back.
Zamir White and flip him for Alvin Kamara or Joe Mixon.
I told him I would throw this one out there, but at Very Easy 13 got $2 fab for Mason Rudolph. Smash accept. No one's paying for Rudolph. Here's one. At NFL News, Drake London and Brock Bowers or CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh.
I was surprised with my answer as well.
Is it?
I said
heavy
London
tight end
Bowers.
Is it
No,
heavy tight
no,
end premium?
no tight end premium at all.
Oh, I'd take CD then.
See, I'm like,
Just
people keep
because
asking
he
me.
has the chance to be viewed as like the Dynasty wide receiver 1 if he goes
Yeah.
out there again this year and does
For
it.
sure. But you just said London has that potential to be in that top 8.
Did CD
Brock
finish
Bowers
as wide receiver 1?
He was wide receiver 1. Brock Bowers, everybody
Wow.
keeps saying, and I'm seeing this, Snoog, and you know I'm pounding the table. People are saying non-tight
Holy
end premium.
shit.
They would rather have Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, or Jonathan Brooks. It's like, just because there's no tight end premium does not mean that Brock Bowers is not that guy you should have. Like, Brock Bowers, people are messaging me and say, yo, I have Laporta and I have Kincaid. Why do I want Bowers? Because it is a position that is scarce. Outside the top 10, I don't want to start Jake Ferguson. If I have Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta, and Dalton Kincaid, I own the trade room. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
people
exactly.
they have to come to me. Next one, sent in from at Eagles Tempo. Montgomery, 105, 207, or Hollywood, 104.
Montgomery,
Nate,
105, 207, or Hollywood.
Here's where it goes. The guy moved up to 104 for Bowers, and Malik Neighbors fell to 105. So this is one of those deals where it's like, he killed it, because I think Montgomery and Hollywood kind of cancel out the 4-5 when you throw that all together. Then he got the 207 upgrade from the 304, and he got Malik Neighbors, who should have already been gone. So
I would easily take Montgomery 105 in general, even if it's not like, so definitely the Montgomery side. Montgomery clears Hollywood.
And he got Ben Sinnott at 207, so it's like he stacked it up.
Nice.
Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, or Higgins, Worthy, Njoku, and Russell Wilson, all in contender.
That's
Hill and
it.
Kelce, or Higgins, Worthy, Njoku, and Russ.
Higgins, Worthy, and Njoku and Russ.
I agree. This is taking one
For
upside.
pieces that are going to give you production, and you
Correct.
get 2 young wideouts, and then you get a young tight end. That's great.
You use Worthy to upgrade from Njoku. You have, Russell Wilson and T. Higgins to move up to Tyreek Hill. I think that's, two individual smashes
Good value,
there.
yeah.
Where I keep putting you to sleep, brother. Because these are dynasty trades. You're supposed to be excited.
I'm just yawning because I haven't eaten breakfast. It always happens to me.
Hey,
I'm not even tired at all.
That's why we come out here and we help you guys smash trades before it even starts. We get that early jump on it. One I just saw here, Jerry Jeudy in the 207 or Chris Godwin.
Jeudy. I don't even think Godwin's worth 207.
I think
Godwin's one of those guys.
He's moving to the slot. He's moving to the slot.
He literally scored like 1 touchdown last year, though. Like, that's so bad. Baker.
That won't happen again. Here's one. I love this one. Jameer Gibbs and Garrett Wilson sent in from
now I'm awake, Dad.
At Kid Dez 88. Gibbs and Wilson for Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, and Drake London. This is big. Like, I told him, if this is 14 team, I'm really considering the package. But man, do I want Gibbs and Wilson.
Gibbs over Taylor, and then I look at it like London and Kyron for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard to deny the package.
Kyron's the handcuff on the Rams. And then you got
right now Kyron's already injured. Your window to buy.
I think Sleazeball is gonna end up sending a bounty to my house if I keep talking bad on Kyron, him and PPR tips.
Yeah.
I think, like I was saying earlier with Drake London, there's a chance he outscores Garrett Wilson this year, and I think Kirk Cousins has more years in him than Aaron Rodgers. So I think you're getting not a free Kyron Williams, but like you're getting a guy that can finish top 10 at the position on top of a guy that can score similar to Garrett Wilson. So that's if you need the depth and it's a deep league, do it. But if it's like start 8 or 9 and you don't need depth, I'd just keep Garrett Wilson and Gibbs because I think they're just more secured foundational assets than like Jonathan Taylor's had that injury history. Gibbs can finish RB1 overall easy. Garrett Wilson can finish as that guy and jump into that CeeDee Lamb tier. Can Drake London? Maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, I would probably, depends on league for me.
So that was our dynasty trades. I mean, I got 135 of them yesterday alone. Guys, if you want that access to Snoog and I, join the Patreon. Nothing better right now than this time of year. We're going to start doing redraft stuff soon. We're going to start hitting you guys up. Yep. We still have that rookie content. We're trying to help you with dynasty trades. You get access to us. You get all the rankings, you get all the content, and you get a room that's now, Snoog, over 300 people strong, answering questions. Minimum, bottom tier, $5. Like, honestly, that is like 15 cents a day to get validation to your dynasty trades. It's well worth it. Make sure you guys check that out. For the trade advice alone, it's worth it. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. Boom.